They say the dead never truly leave us, especially those who died with unfinished business. And if there's one man in American history who carried the weight of a nation on his shoulders, it was Abraham Lincoln. The 16th President of the United States led the country through its darkest hour, the Civil War, and paid for it with his life. But even death might not have been the end for him. For over 150 years, there have been chilling stories, whispers in the night, footsteps on empty stairs, shadows in doorways. Stories that suggest President Lincoln still walks the halls of the White House. Abraham Lincoln was no stranger to sorrow. Before even stepping into office, he'd known deep personal loss. While living in the White House, his young son Willie died of typhoid fever in 1862, and Lincoln was devastated. Grief hung over the halls like a fog. Mary Todd Lincoln, equally heartbroken, became obsessed with spiritualism and held seances in the very rooms where they had once laughed as a family. But it wasn't just grief that haunted Lincoln during his presidency, it was the war. He carried it with him everywhere. Sleepless nights, endless reports of death. His eyes became sunken, his face drawn. He aged quickly, and near the end of his life, he had a dream, a disturbing one. He told his wife that he'd seen himself lying in a coffin in the East Room of the White House. People were mourning. Soldiers stood guard. Days later, it became reality. On April 14, 1865, Lincoln was shot at Ford's Theater. He died the next morning. His body was returned to the White House and placed in the East Room, just as he had dreamed. The nation wept. The world mourned. But something else began too, something eerie. Because it wasn't long after that people started to say, Lincoln never left. The earliest accounts of Lincoln's ghost came from those closest to him. Servants and guards heard footsteps pacing back and forth outside the Lincoln bedroom. Doors opened and shut on their own. Cold drafts swept through sealed rooms. Some said they heard quiet weeping in the night. One housekeeper swore she saw Lincoln's tall, dark figure pass by the grand staircase, only to disappear before her eyes. But it wasn't just staff. Famous visitors also had chilling encounters. First Lady Grace Coolidge, wife of President Calvin Coolidge, once saw a tall man standing by a window in the Oval Office, looking out at the Potomac River. He wore a black suit and stovepipe hat. He didn't speak. He didn't move. He simply stared out the window like he was still waiting for peace. Then he was gone. Winston Churchill, the British Prime Minister, stayed in the Lincoln bedroom during World War II. One night, after a bath and a cigar, he stepped out of the bathroom wearing only a robe and froze. There, standing by the fireplace, was Abraham Lincoln. Calm. Silent. Watching him, Churchill, known for his sharp tongue, supposedly said, "Good evening, Mr. President. You seem to have me at a disadvantage." Lincoln's spirit gave a faint smile and vanished into thin air. Queen Wilhelmina of the Netherlands experienced something even more frightening. While staying in the White House, she was awakened by a knock on her bedroom door. When she opened it, Abraham Lincoln stood before her. She fainted on the spot. Eleanor Roosevelt, though she never saw Lincoln herself, often worked late in the Lincoln bedroom. She said she felt a strange presence there, an invisible weight. Her dog would growl at corners, sometimes barking and refusing to enter the room. Other guests said the same. White House staff over the decades have told dozens of stories. Some saw Lincoln sitting on the edge of the bed in the Lincoln bedroom, bent forward, putting on his boots. Others said they heard his footsteps pacing late into the night. One night, a cleaning woman followed the sound of sobbing into an empty room. No one was there, but the mirror was fogged up, as if someone had been crying in front of it moments before. President Harry Truman once wrote to his wife about the strange noises in the White House. He often heard footsteps at 3 a.m. and doors opening and closing. He said the place was haunted sure as shootin'. Once, after hearing a loud knock in the hallway, he got out of bed and found nothing. Ronald Reagan's daughter, Maureen, refused to sleep in the Lincoln bedroom after she said she woke up in the night and felt like someone was staring at her. The room was ice cold. One of their dogs growled at the door every time they passed. Even in more recent times, strange things have continued. A Secret Service agent once stepped into the Lincoln bedroom and heard a soft voice whisper, "He belongs here." No one else was around. Another agent saw a shadow move across the wall, tall, slow, unmistakably human, but no one was there. During Barack Obama's presidency, the Lincoln bedroom still made people uneasy. Staff would sometimes hear knocking or footsteps overhead when the floor above was empty. Some even refused to clean the room alone. Sasha and Malia, Obama's friends, once reported strange feelings in the room, like being watched, even when they were alone. Many believe Lincoln's ghost remains because of how he died suddenly, violently, in the middle of a divided and broken country. He didn't get to finish his mission. He didn't get to see healing. Some say that kind of unfinished duty can trap a soul. Others believe it's not just Abraham Lincoln haunting the White House. His young son Willie, who died while living there, has also been seen. A few staff members have claimed to hear the quiet laughter or cries of a child echoing through the halls at night. One guard once said he saw a small figure dart across the hallway, no more than a child's height, only to vanish before his eyes. Mary Todd Lincoln, stricken with grief after her son's deaths, turned to spiritualism and held seances in the White House. It was common knowledge at the time. She tried to contact Willie and later Lincoln after his death. Some believe those seances opened a door between the living and the dead, and that door was never fully closed. Some say Lincoln doesn't haunt in anger. He haunts in sadness, in duty, in longing. His ghost isn't vengeful or cruel. He watches. He waits. He mourns. He has been seen by guards standing near the East Room, the same room where his body once lay in state. Sometimes a tall figure in black is spotted at the window, watching the night outside. Other times, people hear deep sighs or feel a sudden cold pressure behind them. Even skeptics admit something feels different about the Lincoln bedroom. Visitors have reported waking up in the night with nightmares of war, of fire, of running. One guest said she woke with tears on her face and the feeling that someone had been standing by her bed all night. Every president since Lincoln has walked the same halls, slept in the same rooms, stood at the same windows. Maybe it's no surprise that some of his energy still lingers. Maybe great pain and great purpose leave behind a trace that time cannot erase. In the early hours of quiet nights, when the house is still, when all the cameras are off, and the guards walk their lonely patrols, some say you can still hear the soft, slow footsteps of a tall man in black. His presence doesn't shout. It lingers. He moves like a memory brought back to life. During the Carter administration, a housekeeper claimed she saw a shadow move behind the long velvet curtains in the Lincoln bedroom. When she pulled the curtain back, no one was there, but the curtains stayed warm, as if someone had just been standing there. Late one night, a presidential aide working in the Oval Office heard 3 loud knocks on the Resolute desk. The room was empty. The windows were closed. When security checked, there were no intrusions. The aide said the air had turned bitterly cold, and he suddenly smelled pipe tobacco, Lincoln's known scent. In 1992, a journalist was given after-hours access to record atmospheric sounds for a documentary. While reviewing the audio, a faint, sorrowful sobbing could be heard. There were no people on site at the time of the recording. When enhanced, a whisper said, "The war is not done." A diplomat from South America attending a formal dinner walked past the Red Room mirror and froze. He later told an interpreter that he saw a tall man in black with a sad face standing behind him. No one else was in the room. He left the dinner early and never returned to the White House. Secret Service logs from the Clinton years recorded a report of the Lincoln bedroom door unlocking itself and opening wide, while no one was on the floor. When checked, the heavy door was found swinging open with no breeze, no staff nearby, and no mechanical fault. In 2008, a military aide stationed overnight in the East Wing claimed to see a tall man in old-fashioned clothing standing at the top of the stairs. When the aide locked eyes with the figure, it gave a slow, solemn nod, then vanished into the air. Maintenance workers have whispered that Lincoln's official portrait sometimes breathes lightly, its frame vibrating as if a pulse moves through it. One even reported the painting's eyes glistening like tears, though the surface remained dry. It was always during nights of political crisis. White House service elevators sometimes stop automatically at the second floor, where Lincoln's bedroom and offices once were, even when no one presses the button. Several staff refused to ride it alone at night. One even heard soft footsteps echo just after the doors opened to the empty hallway. A night janitor in the early 1980s reported a strange cold spot that followed him down the hallway near the Lincoln bedroom. He said the cold wasn't in the room, it was right behind him, step for step. When he turned to look, no one was there, but he felt heavy pressure on his chest and couldn't breathe until he exited the corridor. One of the White House old grandfather clocks, placed in the hallway near the Lincoln bedroom, stopped several times over the years at exactly 7:22 a.m., the time of Lincoln's death. Engineers found no reason for the repeated malfunction. It hasn't been used since. A White House librarian once heard low, solemn laughter echoing through the library room while she worked late. She looked up and saw the reflection of a tall man in the glass door. When she turned around, no one was there, but his shadow remained on the wall for several seconds before disappearing. A Marine stationed on overnight guard duty swore he heard the sound of boots walking along the second-floor hallway, slow, heavy, deliberate. When he looked down the hall, he saw a tall man in black rounding the corner. Moments later, the footsteps stopped, but no one came back. During a stormy night in 1979, a storm blew through Washington. D.C. staff on call that night noticed that the curtains in the Lincoln bedroom swayed, not just from the wind, but inward, as if pulled by unseen hands. There were no open windows and no explanation. One staffer refused to re-enter the room ever again. A White House tour guide once recounted a chilling experience. While preparing for a school group visit, she walked through the East Room and caught sight of a tall man standing silently by the window. She thought it was another staff member, but when she approached, he faded completely into the air, right where Lincoln's body had once lain and stayed. Multiple guards from different administrations reported seeing a tall, dark figure standing motionless at the top of the main White House staircase. He never speaks, never moves. He just stares down, watching until the guard looks away. And he disappears. In 2001, a newly hired maid heard what sounded like a grown man sobbing from inside a walk-in closet next to the Lincoln bedroom. When she opened the door, the sound vanished, but she found the temperature inside freezing cold and a handprint in the dust on the inside of the closet mirror. In the Roosevelt room, a decorative candle kept relighting itself. At first, they thought it was a prank. But even after it was removed and replaced with an electric version, staff claimed to see a flickering light at night, sometimes beside Lincoln's portrait. Security footage showed nothing out of place, but the candlelight would show up in reflective glass. One historian visiting the Lincoln bedroom in 2010, while filming a documentary, claimed to hear a whisper in his right ear as he stood by the fireplace. It said, "Free them." He was so shaken that he stopped filming. When asked about it later, he said he felt like Lincoln was still urging justice from beyond the grave. In the Lincoln sitting room, which once held one of his favorite rocking chairs, staff have witnessed an empty chair rocking steadily on its own. One aide claimed it would begin moving just after midnight, slow and rhythmic, as if someone invisible were deep in thought. In 1994, a maintenance worker cleaning the mirror in the Lincoln bedroom saw the words "sorry" briefly appear in condensation, though the room was warm and dry. He stepped back in shock, and the message slowly vanished before his eyes. No other staff were present. A historian reviewing Lincoln artifacts found the center drawer of an antique desk locked tight. Hours later, as he turned to leave, he heard a soft click, and the drawer slowly slid open. Inside was a single feather, although the drawer had been empty before. He refused to touch it. During the 1970s, a White House photographer reported seeing a tall man in black looking out a second-floor window near the Lincoln bedroom. When guards searched the room, no one was found. Days later, A visiting medium said Lincoln had been watching the war unfold again. In 1986, a cleaning staff member found small scratch marks on the wall inside a utility closet adjacent to the Lincoln bedroom. They read, "Too soon. Not done." The wall was repainted, but weeks later, the marks reappeared. The closet remains locked to this day. During a violent thunderstorm in 1998, a guard saw a tall silhouette standing in the middle of the White House lawn. The cameras picked up no person. When lightning flashed, the shape seemed to vanish into the trees, right where Lincoln's funeral procession had once passed in 1865. A White House intern riding the elevator alone heard a gasp from directly behind her, followed by a whisper, "Mary." She turned, heart racing, but there was no one there. The elevator had not stopped. She never used that lift again. In 2016, a florist arranging displays for a state dinner heard a man call out, "Mary," from behind her. Thinking it was security, she turned, but the room was empty. When asked later what the voice sounded like, she described it as deep, worn, but gentle. A tourist accidentally captured a photo of what appeared to be a tall, dark figure standing near the top of the grand staircase. When she showed it to Steph, they quietly asked her not to share it online. But she posted it anyway, claiming it had to be Lincoln's ghost. In 2005, a night shift security guard patrolling a restricted wing heard the distinct tapping of typewriter keys. The sound came from a locked historical display room. Inside was an antique typewriter Lincoln once used. No paper, no ink, but the keys were warm to the touch. Abraham Lincoln never wanted power. He wanted peace. But peace never came, not fully, not before his death. Maybe that's why he's still there, still walking, still waiting. In the end, the ghost of Lincoln is more than just a spooky tale. It's a reminder of the weight of leadership, the pain of war, the sacrifice of a man who gave everything. So the next time you see a photo of the White House or hear about a new president moving in, think about who might still be walking those halls after dark. Because in the silence of the night, the ghost of Abraham Lincoln still walks, watching, waiting, weeping,